Hi, welcome to the 13th floor. I'm Marty Duda. Today we're very excited to have Declan O'Rourke with us, all the way from Ireland. Hello.
How are you, Marty?
I'm good.
Good to be here.
Nice that you could be here. This is pretty cool. You've been in New Zealand before, you told me, but this is the first time you've been here to perform.
That's right.
So how does that work? You just kind of were hanging around, kind of laying
I lived
low
in
before?
Australia in the late 90s, and I knew some people, family friends in Palmerston North,
Right.
and gets that reaction a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's a good university town, isn't it? We grew up knowing this family, extended family from Palmerston North very well.
Right.
They kind of integrated with our family in Ireland, and there was a lot of back and forth visiting, and almost like a rite of passage or something, especially for them coming to Ireland to trace their roots a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a natural kind of thing to go there when I was living in Australia. I think the trigger for it was a friend of mine needed to renew a visa for Australia, and so he needed to leave the country for
Right.
a weekend. And I said, hey, I know some people in New Zealand.
Right.
We spent 2 weeks over Christmas in Palmerston North,
There you go.
1998.
Can't beat that.
So that was my introduction. But yeah, first time to the land of the long white cloud playing music.
And
very
you've
happy.
already done a couple of shows. How are people familiar with you? Do they know what to expect? Are you kind of having to introduce yourself? Well, how's it been going?
Little bit of both. I think there's murmurings of I've heard the name, or
Yeah.
or I heard of the song, or and so that was nice, and nice kind of sense of expectation. And so all I had to do then is not mess it up.
Easy, right?
It's like the guy said about the fiddle maker. He said to the fiddle maker, how do you make a fiddle? My God, it's so fascinating. And he said, it's very easy. You get a lump of wood and all you do is cut away everything that isn't a fiddle.
When you look at it that way, it seems pretty easy.
Yeah,
I still wouldn't trust me with anything to cut any wood, but
Okay.
so anyway. But over and across the ocean, you're a pretty well-known guy, and you've played with a lot of people. So just give folks an idea of some of the folks that you've collaborated with over the years.
Oh,
Don't be shy.
I don't know. I hate to be accused of name dropping and
This is the time to do
mind your
it.
toes and all that.
Because I saw there was a photo on the website of you and Paul Weller playing together.
Okay, yeah.
So there's one.
Okay, keep
How'd
going.
that happen?
Keep going. Paul is a beautiful man. He and I were on the same label
Right.
when my first record came out. Well, it had been out in Ireland for a while, but then went to release it on a major in the UK and abroad. And he was on the same label, and a couple of the staff there told me randomly that, oh, hey, Paul Weller really likes your record. And I was kind of a bit suspicious of that. I thought they were just, stroking my ego.
Yep.
And funnily enough, I knew his name very, very well, but I couldn't name any of his songs, and anyway, it turned out to be true. They had given him a copy of my record, and he really liked it. He was particularly enamored with a couple of songs, and he very kindly began to talk about it. And he said, the greatest quote you could hope for from anybody. He said that a certain song was, he thought, I think somebody maybe asked him in an interview if you could pick any song in the last 20 years that you wished you'd written, what would it be? And he chose one of my songs.
Whoa, that's pretty good.
And then he updated it to, I think this is the best song written in 25 years. And then he said 30 years. And he keeps saying it in like, publications like Mojo and then
Right.
Desert Island Discs. And you can't ask for anything better than that from Anne. And so I did eventually meet him. He invited me to play. He was playing a tiny show in London to warm up for receiving a Brit Award one night back in 2006 or something, 7. in the Oxford, what was it called? The 100 Club in
Right, yeah,
Oxford
yeah,
Street,
yeah.
very famous jazz club. And he was just a lovely, lovely man, and we hit it off. I've seen him many times since then, you know. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, now you're going to do a few songs for us today.
Yeah.
The first one is a thing called Galileo, which you've recorded twice.
Yeah.
Tell me why you kind of come back to it.
Well, I came back to not only it, but many songs from my career because over the last 10 or 12 years, I've had a series. When I say a series, it sounds planned, but it wasn't. It began with one, and then it was another. But a series of concerts with an orchestra or orchestras, mostly in Ireland. And you know, the songs kind of have evolved through that, you know, because they start off as this,
Right.
and then you add this giant paint box of color and machinery, and you know, they just become something, or the vehicle becomes, the song is still the same, but you're putting it in a different vehicle, and it's a different way to hear it. It's a lot of fun, and you know, then to do them as a collection like that, it's a nice project.
Right.
We had a lot of fun kind of presenting these concerts over the years, and I felt they were received very well, and it just made sense to eventually say, hey, I want other people to hear what we've done, because there's a huge amount of work in it too. Each time I'd have one coming up annually or whatever, you add a few new songs, which means new arrangements, and they could, you know, weeks or months involved in doing that. And so it was nice to, you know, record that, you know.
Well, we're going to hear non-orchestrated this time.
Yeah.
You and your guitar,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Galileo.
Galileo fell in love as a Galilean boy. He wondered what in heaven, who invented such a joy. But the question got the better of his scientific mind, and to his blind and dying days, he looked up high and often sighed, and sometimes cried. Who puts the rainbow in the sky? Who lights the stars at night? Who dreamt up someone so divine? Someone like you and me, them. Love can make you ask some funny questions now and then, but just remember the alternative. For I remember when I was lonely and unhappy, and my lips were cold as ice. But you kissed me, and good heavens, now I'm here in paradise. So if ever I'm not kissing you or looking in your eyes, I won't be blind and I won't cry. I'll look up high and gladly sigh and thank the guy like you and made them move.
We're back here with Declan O'Rourke at the 13th floor, and we just heard Galileo. The next song that you're going to play for us is called Poor Boy's Shoes, and it's from this upcoming project that, from what I read about, has been years in the making. It's called Chronicles of the Great Irish Famine. So you need to elaborate. Tell me why it's taking you so long to get this thing together, and what it is.
Basically, yeah, sure. Well, it's a collection of new original songs in the style of the music of my roots, I suppose, and that I was raised on, which is traditionally folk music, or songs that have existed for an awful long time. And hello.
She never fails to make an appearance.
Yeah. Well,
she may try and stick her head in your glass.
I would feel left out if but I kind of happened. We didn't learn much about this period of history in our school, or in school, and yet it's the biggest series of events ever in the recorded history of Ireland. Biggest impact socially and culturally on the landscape of Ireland, and very important stuff. But I came across it by accident in terms of my motivation to write about it. I learned around 2001 or so that my granddad was born in an institution called a workhouse, and I had no idea what that meant at the time, but I knew it was unusual and interesting. I knew it had some other tentacles, and maybe a month or two after that, I again happened upon a book walking through the biggest bookshop in Dublin, and it was in a bargain bin. It just kind of jumped out at me. It was called The Workhouses of Ireland, and I thought, well, there's my answer.
Yeah.
Picked it up for probably $1 or €1, and I took it on the bus home with me that evening, and literally on the first page of the preface there was a story, and it was kind of just framed in like 3 lines by the author. He said, I will tell you about this, and I'll tell you about this, and then he said, the man who carried his wife home from the workhouse mile after weary mile on his back. When they reached her cottage, he laid her down on the bed. She was dying, and he tried to keep her feet warm by holding them to his chest. And they found him there next morning, just like that. And I was like, wow, hair really stood out. It was like so powerful. And I instantly began to understand that this was all connected with this period of history, which I knew very little about. But the impact of that story, it was so human. It could be from any time, it could be anybody. And I thought people need to know about this, and I need to share this. I need to communicate it to people. And I've spent many years trying to figure out why I was so moved by that, or why it was so, because I think it's beautiful as well as sad. And my thinking is that it shows, it's a demonstration of what people are capable of, the gesture of humanity, even in their worst, darkest hour, And I thought, like, we need to learn. We learn empathy from things like that, because empathy is a process of putting yourself in someone else's place and saying, what if that was me? What if that was my mother, my daughter, my sister, my father? And I think that's how we sense the world, that's how we learn, and that's hopefully how we try to prevent these things from happening again. Right. They will always happen, but less if we care more and if we can, you know, feel these things. So I think they're very important universal stories, and I set out to find and research and find stories like that, personal stories, personal accounts from the famine. It's not so long ago, it's probably 6 or 7 generations,
Right.
which is really skin deep. It's my granddad's granddad, kind of, you know. But yet, there are very few personalized accounts that survive or that you can access. The reasons for that are, you know, because the bulk of Ireland's poor were not literate at that time. And, you know, many of those who were obviously passed away or moved away. And then there was this thing they call the silence or the great shame that it wasn't talked about. And I've struggled until very recently to understand what that means, because I can't relate to it. In the world we live in,
Right.
I'm like, why would you not talk about it? That's, you know. But somebody said to me very recently in the lead up to this record, we're discussing PR opportunities and or what you do with this record, where it can go. And somebody said, it's kind of got good educational value. Would you consider going into schools with it, you know? And only then did I realize maybe why they were silent about it. I thought, how could you teach that to children without scaring the shit out of them
Right.
or damaging them? Like, how could you?
Yeah.
And if that was literally a generation ago, or it was your relatives, how could you tell that to people
Yeah, it's just too
without
close,
probably falling apart every time, or and without damaging them, you know, because they were so in fear of it happening again. It wasn't a unique experience. It wasn't the first time there was a famine. There was one as recent as 1832. This one happened in the late 1840s. There were many famines, but that was the one that we know as the Great Irish Famine. It was because it was so big, so impactful, and so well recorded, and it began a wave, a boom in emigration that has never stopped. You know, at the time we had approximately 8 to 9 million people in Ireland. Today we still haven't reached 6.
Really?
Because so many people began to leave.
Right.
I mean, the famous line that was bandied about after the famine was 1 million dead, 1 million fled. That only explains 2 million.
Yeah.
You know, but like the population continued to drop, and you know, about 75, 80 million people around the world now claim Irish heritage, and yet we still only have 6. It's almost, you know, I wouldn't say it's unique. I'm sure there are other countries that are similar, but you know, so it's relevant to a lot of people in the world as well. You know, like John F. Kennedy's grandfather left Ireland during the famine to escape it. And the global implications of that, like the ripples, if you think about the effects that had on world politics, you know, it's huge.
All right, well, let's give a listen to the song then.
Poor Boy's
Poor
Shoes.
Boy's Shoes.
When he met her at the dance, she had flowers in her hair. There was no girl in this land who could have stood next to her there. And there everyone could see how he loved her instantly, though he had nothing to give her but his poor boy's hopes and dreams. Well, he danced with her that summer till it showed on her sweet face how she was taken by the warmth of him and all his gentle ways. And then he swore to her his love was true, and he married her in poor boy's shoes. Well, not many years had passed through the grip of his strong hands, when a great unyielding hunger drew its veil across this land. His young love soon took ill, and with two little mouths to fill, it took all he could to keep them from the poor house on the hill. But when his pockets had run dry from crying tears that rang like bells, and their home drew in the wind just like an old seashell, then he gathered everything he had to lose, and he walked them up in poor boy's shoes. First God took the little boy, then he took the little girl, and soon their little souls were free from all the sadness in this world. Their father lifted up his love. She could no longer walk alone, and from the poor house on the hill, he took her on the long walk home. And there he felt the cold upon her as he laid her down to rest. And so he knelt down by her bed and drew her feet up to his chest. And there he tried to warm her cold feet through, and they found him there in poor boy's shoe. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da,
All right, that's Poor Boy's Shoes from the upcoming album Chronicles of the Great Irish Famine, which, as we're sitting here now, the album is due out in like 2 weeks, something like that?
Yes, I learned last night that it exists somewhere in the world, in a warehouse, which is very exciting to me.
Are you itching to see
I'm
it?
itching to, yeah.
Vinyl?
Well,
will there be vinyl?
There is vinyl, double vinyl.
Double vinyl, even better.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll grace your wall at some stage, gatefold.
Yeah. Nice, all righty, well, I'm looking forward to that. pretty
so
exciting.
yeah, it's been a long time coming for me, 16 years or something. So when I see it,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah. So
it'll
I'm
be-
sure people
I'll
can check
probably
out your
cry.
website and be able to order it online and all
Mhm.
that stuff. It'll be good. Cool. Well, we got one more song that we're going to hear, which is Gold Bars in the Sun. And before we talk about that, maybe just touch on where you're going to be going in New Zealand. I don't know if you know the names of the places off the top of your head.
we are going to.
You're playing everywhere but Auckland, basically.
Pretty much, even though we're in Auckland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is
This is
our
the gig, huh?
exclusive Auckland show. So we're going to New Plymouth. Now, Paikakariki.
Sounds good to me.
Right?
I think it was pretty good, actually. Better than I could do.
Nelson. You can talk. Wellington.
Wellington?
Wellington.
Yeah.
Wellington.
And Martinborough. Not quite Netherwood.
Marlborough.
Martinborough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Open Mic Festival.
Yeah.
Is it a festival? Yeah.
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 Oh, that's a good.
Hello. Yeah. What if I?
She's resting now.
What if I do this to you? Hmm? Huh? We can have a.
She will bite you.
She will.
She doesn't take any guff.
Okay.
You're gonna get her all riled up.
Mm. She's getting in there already, but she's not hurting. She's not hurting.
No, she knows just
She's-
how
yeah,
far she can
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
I've got the scratches to prove it.
She's gone nearly there. Cut.
Is she dug in?
She's digging in a little.
Uh-oh.
Should I bring her around? Or are you happy with
No, so I can just do that.
There you go.
She'll get the message.
She'll like that, yeah. All right. So tell me about Gold Bars in the Sun. Before we hear
Gold
it.
Bars in the Sun, yeah. So that was a record I brought out 2 years ago. It began with releasing a song a month. Well, we'll just talk about the song though.
Yeah.
Gold Bars in the Sun. Well, interestingly, for me at least, I had a conversation in Australia last week with somebody, and it was a conversation about, quite a random conversation, but about the place where you feel most at home.
Right.
I was talking to a nice lady musician, and she asked me where exactly I'm from in Ireland, and I told her, raised in Dublin, but I live in the west coast of Ireland. I live just outside a little fishing village my granddad came from a long time ago. He was an artist, and he painted lots of scenes of this little beautiful town, rural town, and they were in all our family houses growing up, and so I was always drawn to it. And it's by the sea, obviously a fishing village, and I live there now. And so this lady was then telling me where she lives, and she was raised in this place in New South Wales, and she was saying, you know, something about this particular little patch of ground.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so connected to it, and you know, we were saying, what is the word for that? There's got to be a word for it. And she reckoned that there was no word for it, not in the English language. The closest to it is belonging.
Right.
And I think she was right, because I kind of challenged myself instantly to find a word, and I couldn't come up with it. And I thought about it for days, and nothing came. And then I was driving around New Zealand the last few days with my friend, and he's from New Zealand, lives in Sydney, and he began to tell me about a place where his father used to take him when he was a kid, and feels this really strong connection right there. He feels really grounded. And one of his Maori friends told him that the word for that is Tauranga Waiwai. It's the place where your legs spring forth from the earth, a place to stand on that supports you. And so poetic, beautiful words. So I was able to, I contacted my mutual friend of this lady, and I said, hook me up with it. And I said, I found the word.
Right.
You know? And so that song, Gold Bars in the Sun, is about home and the connection to a place, but it's also about, it's a song for people who may have at some stage in their life had to choose between the place that they love, that they feel is home, and what's best for their family at a given moment in time, because
Yep.
so many people have had to do it here, and my family did it when I was young, and unfortunately many more people are having to do it now around the world.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to hear it. But thank you very much for coming up here. It's
Thank you, Marty.
an honor
Really
to have
enjoyed
you,
it.
your only Auckland show in my living room, so that's fantastic.
Great.
Hopefully people will
Honored.
get out to check you out while you're here, and
Fantastic.
we'll look forward to the new album when it comes out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a girl in a town that I love. I wish I could stay there the rest of my life. But life has a habit, and love has a way of making you move, and you just want to stay. I'm in love with a town. It runs in my blood. I wish I could stay, but I can't have them both. It's a slow, quiet place. She thinks we're too young, but I like the pace. Just rolling along where the hay bales lie out like gold bars in the sun, and an ocean of songs blows on the west wind. She's the girl I will marry. She'll make me a die. I know she's the best friend that I've ever had. I'm in love with a town, but a town can't compare. So wherever she goes, I will follow her there. I'll just blow with the wind and hope that someday the road that we take will lead back some way. To where the hay bales lie out like gold bars in the sun, and an ocean of songs blows on